You are listening to the REI Mastermind Podcast. Join JD as he chats with industry-leading real estate experts and professionals. We learn from their experience and uncover the strategies to their success that we can implement into our own businesses, and we can drive immediate results today. They share their experience and wisdom as we build a foundation to our own success. This is the REI Mastermind Network.
Well, we got Jason DeBono on the line here tonight, and Jason is a self-directed IRA expert, and this is going to be a great conversation because I think this is a topic that we don't visit often enough, and there's always a lot of questions around this, Jason, regarding what even is a self-directed IRA. But to start things off, Jason is the vice president of NuView Trust. And you can find out more information and his contact information at NuViewTrust.com. And then I also understand that NuView Trust is pretty prominent and active on a lot of the social media networks, so you can look for them there as well, especially LinkedIn. But Jason, I really appreciate your time tonight, and let's pull the curtain up on this this foggy topic called self-directed IRAs.
Well, thanks, Jack. Looking forward to it.
So let's pretend that we don't know anything about self-directed IRAs. We probably should go like at the very beginning. What is it? Let's go bare bones here on this.
Sure. Taking it all the way down to its most basic point, a self-directed IRA is really two-part. So first of all, it is an IRA just like an IRA today, right? So there's no uniqueness around the tool of an IRA. What makes a self-directed account unique is the fact that it's held at a custodian that doesn't have any sort of investment offering or any tie to any asset class. So it gives you the full spectrum of investment choices. So most IRAs are held at banks and brokerage firms. Well, they only allow you to invest into what's on their platform: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, publicly traded assets. At NuView, being that we're a third-party custodian without any sort of brokerage ties, we allow our accounts to be self-directed into anything outside the stock market. So our customers buy real estate, issue private loans, invest in private equity, all while maintaining the tax advantages that IRAs offer.
Sure. This is something that I think is kind of, I don't know if it's hidden or it's just not as prominent in like what a lot of financial advisors would typically offer. Why would you say that this seems to be a very powerful tool and vehicle? Why is this like not as well known?
Well, there's probably a lot of answers. I've been in this business for 15 years, and the good news is it's a lot more known today than it was 15 years ago. But you're right. It's still the vast majority of people don't know that it exists. I think the easiest way to answer that is, and again, a little bit of speculation, but a little bit of experience sprinkled in, that there's no incentive for the banks and brokerage firms or the advisors that represent those firms to offer you a product that they don't sell. It'd be like going to McDonald's, right, and kind of looking at the menu and going, gosh, really don't want a burger. I think I'd prefer a taco, and someone behind the counter saying, oh, well, if you leave here, go out the road, there's a Taco Bell around the corner, right? We would never expect that to happen. And it's kind of the same thing. The brokerage houses, the banks, the financial industry, they represent the publicly traded equity markets. And so there's no incentive, albeit financial or anything beyond that, for them to tell you to go somewhere else unless you have a really clear indication of what you want to do and they know how to get you to what you want.
Sure. So, you mentioned that the IRAs can be used for the real estate and private lending, that type of thing. Are there other aspects other ways you can leverage it? And with that, on the flip side, are there ways that you really can't use it for?
Yeah, the IRS kind of, polices this under what I call the toddler approach. And for those that have kids, you'll understand this. For those that don't, you'll get it when you do. When I say it's the toddler approach, if you think about how we parent, no matter what parenting style you choose, we don't walk around with our toddlers and tell them, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that, right? We don't tell them everything they can do. We do the opposite, right? Don't do that, don't eat that, don't climb on that. And the idea behind it is because if we tell them if we teach them the much smaller list of things they can't do, they'll naturally learn and grow into the much larger list of things they can do. Mm-hmm. And the IRS really, from a code standpoint, tells us kind of treats us in that same toddler approach when it comes to limitations within an IRA. They don't actually say you can buy stocks, you can buy mutual funds, you can buy real estate. Instead, what they do is tell you you cannot buy life insurance and you cannot buy collectibles. They're the only two asset classes prohibited. The other thing they tell us is that we cannot use the money for any personal gain or any personal gain by certain family members. They want us to invest this in a passive way for retirement. They don't want us using it to invest into a business I own today. That would defeat the premise, right? And it goes against the tax advantage growth that these IRA accounts offer. So yeah, rules are pretty simple. I mean, no life insurance, no collectibles, no using the money for your personal gain. That said, you can do just about anything else that you can imagine. Real estate, private loans, and private equity are kind of the three most common asset classes. But we have clients that do tax liens, tax certificates. We have clients that invest in cryptocurrency and digital assets. We have clients that own precious metals. You name it, you can probably do it in an IRA.
So, when you say personal gain, in the end, the retirement is a form of personal gain. When you say personal gain, do you mean like immediate, like you mentioned, investing in your direct business? Like it's can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly like you said. And that is certainly any time the account grows, there's some personal gain, but you don't actually get that benefit until you withdraw the money in your retirement years. The gain is all put back in the IRA. Personal gain would be exactly what you mentioned. It would be taking your IRA, investing it into your business, and now your business is personally benefiting from that infusion of capital. That's what's prohibited, not the act of writing a loan out of an IRA. Your IRA can write a loan to my business. You just can't write the loan to your own business because it's not the loan that's prohibited. It's your personal benefit of that money that they don't want. Sure.
So let's talk about your company and how that relationship works. Like if somebody is looking to set up a self-directed IRA, I've actually asked some local financial advisors, and when I brought up self-directed IRAs, I more times than not, and sadly, I get kind of blank stares. Half the time they don't know what I'm talking about. Like, what type of questions should somebody be asking to make sure it's a good fit? Like, because that's a pretty direct and relationship there.
Yeah, I mean, anytime someone's holding your money, there's lots of questions that should be asked. So let me start with kind of the role that we provide. So we serve a very similar role to a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity from a custodian standpoint, meaning we hold the IRA, we take direction from the customer, we hold the assets in the account, and we report to the IRS every year. And that's really exactly what Charles Schwab is doing too. What's different about us is we do it in a non-advisory environment, so you've got to make your own investments. And number two, we don't have any restrictions on the asset classes like Schwab does that will custody. So we're a very important piece of the puzzle because you can't do this without a custodian. So you have to have someone that houses your IRA and handles the reporting, et cetera. Some of the questions that should be asked, some of the basic ones are, how long have they been in business? What's their financial strength? How many assets or clients, do they hold in terms of number of clients or dollar value? How are they regulated, right? Like NuView is a South Dakota chartered public trust company. We are regulated by the South Dakota Division of Banking, and we are all of our audits and everything is all performed by them. We have to have capital with the state that's pledged to the state. So we have money that just sits in cash under a pledge to the division, and that's referred to as capital adequacy. And that's reviewed every audit that we have with the division, and they change that capital adequacy to reflect our current client structure. So not everyone in this business has that same level of regulatory oversight. So that's something that we encourage people to ask is, people can be in this business and then they can rent services of a trust company. We are the trust company. So you're getting your services directly from the regulated entity. So all of those questions are good. And then beyond that, what's the service offering? Everybody serves customers a little bit different. How much technology is important to you? And if it's important to you, then make sure your custodian is offering that. Hours of operation, ease of processing, reviews. I mean, there's lots of ways that you could evaluate a company, beyond just how much money do you hold and how long have you been in business and how are you regulated to? Are you going to serve me the way I want to be served?
Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned, that relationship and having that technology in place. Could you talk about how, maybe even walk us through the process? Like, let's say I open up a self-directed IRA and I needed the money for an investment. Like, how does that work? Do I get to just have a check blank and I can write a check for it right out of the account, or is there another process? How does that look?
Well, I'll keep this kind of at 20 or 30,000 feet just for the sake of time. But there's really a couple ways that you can structure your self-directed account. The most common way is it's directed through the custodian. So you found a piece of real estate that you want to buy. You would notify NuView as your custodian of that purchase intent. So we have a form that you can complete. You can do it all electronically, so you don't have to, take pen to paper if you don't want to. But you would fill out what we call a purchase authorization form. So you would say, "Dear NuView," right? Fill in the boxes. I want to buy 123 Main Street for $50,000. Here's the title company and escrow agent. Here's the realtor, etc. And here's the contract, right? Because you've already gone out and negotiated it. And then we would turn around, we'd sign the contract, we'd send the escrow money, and then we'd work with the title company to get it closed. All of that is part of the process. And there's a natural part of that process that involves you and involves us, so we all work hand in hand to get it closed. The other way that you can structure this is to actually set up some sort of LLC that you personally manage on behalf of your IRA. So in this case, you would direct the custodian to fund the money into the LLC. So instead of buying the property, you'd send your entire IRA balance to the LLC. And then you would, as the manager of that LLC, you would be the one that goes and buys the property. So you don't have to go through NuView for the individual property purchase. It adds a little step, it adds some responsibility, and you may pick up some LLC fees and other things that you would normally not have to pay, but it'll give you that kind of blank check reference that you made in terms of being able to control it. Either way is fine for us. It really is personal preference. Generally, unless somebody is going to be owning more than one or two properties, or is buying investments that are very time sensitive, the LLC doesn't make sense. But if you were going to go buy 2 or 3 properties in a year, or you were going to be moving quickly, then that LLC model can become very attractive for you. Sure.
So, can we also chat a little bit about like the different IRA retirement plans that might be available? A Roth IRA, for example, is a topic or a hot, that's almost a preferred or default method these days. Like, are there ways to enable the self-directed IRA with the same functionality, if you will?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions, because one of the things that we tend to, we get so caught up from an investment standpoint. Everybody's like, how do I do real estate? How do I issue a loan? And sometimes it's best to step back and say, are you in the right IRA or IRAs, plural? So many people have what they've had, right? I've said to people, what kind of IRA do you have? And they're like, I don't know. And that tells me, gosh, this client doesn't even know if they've already committed to pay the tax, or if they're getting a tax benefit, or, the process should involve really understanding what IRA that you want. So I kind of use the analogy of your IRA is the vehicle, right? It's like car shopping. You don't just go to the parked car lot and figure out what's the one vehicle that you see, and you don't buy it just because it's the same car, right? You evaluate them, what's the difference, et cetera. The difference between the plans, really the predominant one, is how much money you can put in. And that tends to vary based on how you earn your money. The second question is do you want to pay the tax up front, or do you want to pay the tax at the end, right? Tax on the seed or tax on the crop. So most accounts, with the exception of the Roth, are all paid at the end. So it's deferred. So you get tax benefits to put it in and you pay at the end. The Roth, which is by default really the best account, right? As a general premise, you pay the tax up front, which may seem like it's costing you more, but then all of your growth is tax-free. And that's just a great way to go. There are some exceptions, and you've got to look at your own personal situation. The third thing is what are you saving the money for? We think of IRAs as simply a retirement tool, and that's very true. But there's also a health savings account, which is a tool to use tax beneficial or tax advantage money to pay for your health costs. And then there's an ESA, which is an educational savings account that's a tax advantage way to pay for educational expenses. So, you can have multiple accounts, and it's important that you look at having as many of those as you can. In my opinion, it's very simple. Have as many tax advantaged accounts as you can and put as much money into them as you can, because there's no more efficient way to build wealth than through tax benefits. The investment side is really less important from a standpoint of what decision gets made first. Investing is important, but it's not nearly as important as the vehicle that you choose to invest through.
So you brought up a couple things that kind of blew my mind there for just a second. You're the first person to mention the health savings account and the education savings account. Like HSA, that's with the growing costs of healthcare, we're all kind of doing our best to try to accommodate and make sure we have the money for that. When you leverage the HSA and you're applying these funds and investing for your HSA, you mentioned earlier we can't use that for self-benefit, but is that kind of an exception to the rule in a little ways, because you're kind of using the proceeds there to pay your medical bills, aren't you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so when let's start with an IRA. So really, the money in an IRA accumulates tax advantage, right? Tax-free or tax-deferred, depending on what type of account you chose. And you become eligible to take it out at retirement, 59.5 without penalty. You can use the money for whatever you want, right? The rules say you've got to hold it till retirement. That's the deal. With an HSA, there is no time horizon. The deal that you make is you won't take it out for personal use, or you'll pay a tax and penalty. But you can take it out anytime, so long as it's for a qualifying medical expense. So they don't view that as personal benefit. Same thing with the ESA. When you withdraw money out of your ESA, there's no time constraint, so long as it's being used for qualifying educational expense. So these accounts have different purposes, and the timing of your distributions is based on what you're using the money for. So only an IRA has a time constraint of 59.5. HSAs and ESAs aren't time contingent. They're actually use of fund contingent. So at any point, you can withdraw out of an HSA to pay for qualifying medical expenses 100% tax-free. And then same thing with an ESA. You can withdraw at any time to pay for qualifying educational expenses 100% tax-free.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. That's a new piece of information I think we've all have missed. So, let's say we're talking about investing in real estate. One of the benefits is the tax benefits of holding real estate, is the depreciation schedule, for example. Does that type of benefit then impact or directly benefit? How does that still benefit me, or is that reserved tax purposes for the IRA? And am I even making sense there when I'm asking here?
Yeah, you sure are. And one of the big benefits of owning real estate is there are lots of tax benefits, and certainly depreciation is one of those. But keep in mind that depreciation is a discount. It's a discount against other tax liabilities you may have incurred. In an IRA, you lose depreciation. And while that sounds like a bad thing, you lose it because you don't have any tax to offset it against. It's a better trade-off. So depreciation is great because you have tax liability. But if you could choose, depreciation or no tax, you'd choose no tax every day of the week. So you're not losing depreciation, you just don't need it any longer. But that said, we do believe in true wealth building is really looking at your different ways to buy a property, determining where it fits best. So I kind of refer to this as where you want to get to in your wealth building, journey is where you have retirement accounts. Maybe it is a Roth and an HSA and an ESA, but you also have investable funds outside the account. And the real beauty is actually looking at the investment first, validating it's a good deal, and then determining from a tax standpoint, what vehicle does it belong in? So I'll give you an example. If I had an investment that I was going to make into a single family piece of real estate, right? And this thing it was a probate property, a divorce property. It was incredibly distressed. It was in a great neighborhood. Man, I knew this thing was going to be very short term and I was going to make a quick bit of money on it. Well, I wouldn't want to own it in my personal name because depreciation doesn't matter if I sell it inside of a year, right? So I've got this big liability. Well, that fits so nicely in a Roth, because if I buy it for 100 and sell it for 2 in 8 months, it's 100% tax free. No matter how many tax schemes you use outside the IRA, you're never going to wash away $100,000 of short-term capital gain. You're going to pay some tax on that. So in an IRA, I pay none. But if I'm looking at another investment, and let's just say I'm going to be a passive investor into a multifamily syndication, right? I'm going to invest into an apartment complex with a bunch of other investors. Well, if that fund is using bonus depreciation, right, where they're accelerating it all into year one, and I'm going to put in 50 grand and get like $40,000 worth of write-off, well, why would I put that in my IRA, right? Because I'll carry those losses forward for years to come. So that deal probably goes better in my personal name because it's got a huge tax incentive associated with it that I would forego if I did it in my IRA. So when we talk about these deals, really success is not being a great investor. Success is evaluating each investment on their own and then deciding which vehicle is best, personal, IRA, HSA, ESA, whatever other entities or structures exist, and then plucking them into the right one.
Sure. So, this is something that I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is this the type of thing you just talked about there? Is NuView and yourself, are you comfortable giving that level of advice when somebody comes to you and says, okay, this is the investment I want to make? Are you comfortable telling them, we can put it in there, but you would probably benefit better by this option or that option? Or
yeah, so we do not provide any advice. That's our business, okay. And it's our legal obligation as a self-directed custodian is we are 100% non-fiduciary, non-discretion. So that means all investment decisions are up to you. We're happy to have discussions about things to consider. So if you were to ask me that, my comment back would be, well, Jack, first of all, I don't give investment advice, but I can tell you this, in an IRA, you forego depreciation. So if there's heavy depreciation on this asset, right, it starts to look less attractive in an IRA. Whether you do it or not and what you do with that information is up to you. We're strong believers in the team approach. We can't be custodian, attorney, advisor, accountant, right? And if we were, we wouldn't be good at all those roles. So, we encourage clients to go seek the professional guidance they need based on the transaction they're trying to complete. Some are very simple and straightforward, and they don't require a lot of moving parts. You're going to buy one property, the money's in your IRA, you don't want to own it personally. It doesn't really matter from a tax standpoint. It's a flip of the coin, right? You're really not doing this for any reason other than you just don't want to be in the stock market in 2020, right? You'd rather own a rental property. When those decisions are already made, then really you don't need all this extra stuff. Where that sort of extra tax and legal guidance can come into play is as the complexities of your investment get more grand, or you start having more disposable money to invest, and you got to now start being a little more strategic. In any case, it's worth the money to make that investment, to seek the professional guidance. As they say, if you can't afford the attorney, you can't afford the deal, right? So there's some truth in that, although I think we all would agree not every transaction requires a full-blown legal opinion. But when it does, it's worth the money to do it for sure.
Sure. No, I appreciate you being that open about it. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think you nailed exactly what I was looking for. Because you were at least open to talking about situations in an abstract form versus fending for yourself to a certain level. I mean, give me some historical background at least.
Sure.
So with that, I've consumed quite a bit of your time here tonight, but I wanted to call out a couple things. So again, if they want to talk to you, Jason, they were going to definitely find you through NuView Trust website, NuView.trust.com. Are there any other preferred methods to get a hold of you or somebody on your team?
Well, we always recommend the website. I mean, all of our contact info is there. You can chat. You can, call in. I mean, there's all kinds of options available. The reason that we, really like to kick people to the website is not because we don't want to interact with you. We actually find that if you go on the website and do a little digging and take on with so much educational content that's all free, that we prefer to have the discussion that's a little bit more pointed. It's just a lot deeper of a conversation. So, but that said, if you have questions and you need answers and you don't know where to go look, pick up the phone and give us a call, and we're happy to help.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you actually have something kind of fun coming up. Let's chat a little bit about the Happy Hungry. No, that's the wrong thing I wrote down. Charity cooking class, October 29th.
Yeah, we have a charity, a 501c3 called Share the Love. That's a mobility-based organization, and so it provides wheelchairs and mobility to those in need throughout the world. We just gave the county in which we live in 85 wheelchairs for all their local schools, so that nobody in a school will, based on some budget cuts, is going to have to do without. So if somebody has a short-term need, right? Maybe they've broken a leg or things that they can't get coverage for. We've provided wheelchairs to every school in the county to solve that problem. But we distribute wheelchairs throughout the world. And in order to do so, like any other charitable organization, we have to raise money. We normally host an annual gala in November every year. Given COVID, we've moved to a virtual event, but we took a little bit of a different spin. It's a virtual cooking class, so we've got an award-winning chef that's going to be joining us and walking through a couple of fantastic dishes and showing everyone how to do it. And you'll be on the Zoom call from home with your iPad in your kitchen and following right along. And so it's a great event. All the money, 100% of the proceeds go to Share the Love and in turn go to helping those in need with mobility related services throughout the world.
So if they want to sign up for that event, where would they go? Is it sharethелove.org or?
Yep, sharethелove.org is the charity's website. We also have a specific event website called cuisineforthecause.com, but they can get there through sharethелove.org as well.
So, well, I appreciate your time. And again, I hope we can chat about this again sometime. You've really brought up some interesting things. I wanted to cover a couple of those. The HSA and the ESA, those are new strategies that I hadn't heard before. And it's really important that we understand that there are a variety of investment options, especially the Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. And that's where NuView Trust can really help everybody out to understand those investment options. I really liked the questions that you brought up regarding making sure that your custodian matches what you need. I'm a techie guy. I would want any kind of like an online portal or some online tools that I can access and quickly check a few things. So those tips and tricks are really helpful today. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and if you need anything else, let me. If you need anything, I'm always here to help you. And I definitely get that impression from you. So I really advise everybody to check out Jason DeBono at NuViewTrust.com.
This has been the REI Mastermind Network. You can already tell that we've made some changes, and a few more are on the way. If you are interested in what we have planned, head over to patreon.com/REI Mastermind and support the show today. Financial contributions are always appreciated, along with a like, share, and review. It really helps us grow and reach more people with this valuable information. See you next time, and tell a friend.